Hey Terry, how's it going?
Good, how you doing?
Not too bad. You ready for this one?
Sure, do you need any help? Everything looks good.
Yeah, I got Kara right next to me, so
Oh,
I think
okay.
I'm doing pretty well.
Oh, you don't need me at all then. Man.
Hey Terry, how's it going? Oh,
Oh, sorry, that's me coming back around.
I'm
Hang on there. Fix that. So yeah, so the live stream is up and running, and just a note that right now our conversation is going out over the live stream. Oops, I lost. Oh, then. Sorry, I lost you there. Hang on.
Hey Terry, how's it going? Oh,
Oh, sorry, that's okay. There we go. You still there?
all right. I think I'm doing better now.
Sorry, I had my live stream going through the audio.
Yeah, I think I did too. All right, where'd my page go? There we go. All right, hiccup number one checked off.
Oh, I've done that a ton of times.
All right, I think I am gonna start the webinar if you're good with it.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, here we go.
So one thing, I don't know if we can fix it now, but on the live stream, the chat is open.
The chat is open.
Yeah, the YouTube chat. So, I mean, it may not be a huge issue, but generally we disable it for our
Gotcha.
meeting. I might be able to go in and fix that. Hang on.
Settings. No, Terry might ask. Terry's probably the one that asks.
Okay. Terry, you think you can handle it on your end?
I think so. I think we can still disable that once the live stream is started. So let me just pop in and check here.
Okay.
Okay, I was able to go in and turn the chat off, so you should be good.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I will have it in the background and just send me a text or DM if you need any help with anything. But otherwise, it looks fine.
Will do. Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good one.
You too.
Okay. We're already recording the meeting?
Yeah.
I've got 4 o'clock, but we don't have a quorum yet. Let's see, myself, Travis, and Chris. Patrick or TJ, any of the staff, did you hear of anyone not attending?
No, it seemed like everyone was going to attend as far as I'm aware. We are currently recording and live streaming.
Yeah, okay. Well, as soon as we get, let's see, what do we need? 4 or 5 to make a quorum? Seven, so we need 4 minimum.
Oh, you can commence the meeting. I mean, a quorum really affects the validity of a vote, and you're really just making a recommendation and conferring today. So I mean, if you want to take a
Okay.
formal vote,
That's
as
a
you
good point.
quorum, but you can start the meeting with less than that if you want to. Up to you, Chair.
Well, I was kind of hoping to get a few more people to participate, but
Totally get it.
I
Totally
also,
get it.
I also respect the time of the people that showed up to listen to this, so to participate, so. Um, I think Norm wasn't going to be here because he was having knee surgery. I've got Kara. Oh, we got Jonathan. Okay, let's get started. We have, good majority of us. Welcome everyone to our Bond Accountability Committee Charter meeting. So this is a special meeting that we put together so we could go over the proposed changes to the charter that have come from staff and others. And you all should have received material from our staff that includes the January 28th draft. And then I think it was Liz put together a matrix of all the changes. And so my idea, and you guys can suggest if you'd rather do something different, was just to go down through this list of things that she has on here. And if we have no comments, we'll assume they're okay. And otherwise, we'll have a discussion until we either can arrive at a decision or we reject them. There's a way to get through this. Does that work with most of you or with you on the call? Is that okay?
Are you talking about going through the matrix or?
Yes, going through the matrix because she's got everything listed here, and that way we'll cover everything.
I think the one thing I would point out, which I neglected to put on the form, is sort of an other. There may be other things that the
Right.
committee wants to discuss that hadn't been previously surfaced. We tried to capture the various sources of recommendations thus far.
Right. So at the end, we'll have the anything else. And as we go through, if there's an area where we do need to add something, let's, be sure and call it out. Okay, well, let's just get started because we've got an hour. First item was to remove in November 2012 and May 2017. So that would establish more language that does not need to be updated with new bond approvals. Anybody have a comment, question, or concern with that one? Okay, how about the next one? Replace citizen with community. Any comment, question, concern with that one? Okay, knocking these off here. Next one was to add an independent group of community members So it moves the purpose language to the opening paragraph, commensurate language deleted in the next section. Anybody have an issue with that one? And you'll have to speak up because my screen only shows 6 of you on it. And so I know we have more members than the 6, but I can only see 6 of you on my screen. Okay. The next one, add the Board of Education as board. I don't think anybody has a problem with that, probably. Okay. Add execution, which was clarifying language. Any comment, concern with that? Okay. Under the committee charge, we added and review, which was clarifying language. Any concern with that? Oh, great. Now I can see you all. Okay. Committee charge, add including bond project and program status reports, critical path schedules, budgets and expenditures, project prioritization within bond programs and annual bond performance audits, etc. That expanded and clarified our duties and was recommendation 15. We all okay with that?
I am okay with it, and this may go in the parking lot. I'm absolutely okay with it. I think what would really be helpful is if staff brings forward to us in the course of doing these regular reports, some kind of discussion about big picture. These are the things we're worried about. I mean, I have to staff a committee like this where I work, and the amount we have under construction at any given moment is not anywhere near as the size of what PPS has. But I think about, like, frankly, the managing up I do, and also how to use the expertise of the people in that space effectively. And I use it most effectively when I'm just open with them about, like, man, this is the thing that's freaking me out. Like, whatever it is. And I think that, like, this language certainly leaves plenty of space for staff to do that. But I think if we're trying to get at the core function of providing accountability, we need to be thinking about how they use this group and what kind of conversations they initiate, rather than expect us to ask about based on the reporting that we get.
So if I listen to what you're getting at, Jonathan, I mean, one of the things we've always talked about is having them identify the risks that are out there. So that and we did this in the past when we had the risks from tariffs and we had the risks from supply chain, and we asked how that affected the bond program and the monies they had available. So if we added, I think that's a reasonable thing to add to make it very clear that we want a report of what risks that the staff sees out there that may impact the program.
Yeah, it's arguably covered by, bond project and program status reports and critical path schedules. But I am saying we should have something in there about critical areas of risk and exposure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
not that staff has it all figured out, but that they're candid with us about, like, we think the Landmarks Commission is never going to let us demo Jeff, for, like, just as an example.
Right.
Jonathan's
Everybody
point, I was going to say Jonathan's point is well taken, because I thought that was overly prescriptive, and in a governing document, it felt like it was constraining. So if there's something that provides for some flexibility for anything future ready, also, I think that is a nice way to capture that.
So we can add language in that enumerated list. I mean, it does say including, right? So there should be, that should have some give in it, but we can add specific language about identifying risks. I think when we think about this, the cycle of this, what do you need from staff so you can inform the board, right? And that's the circle. So I think that's a perfectly appropriate addition. And we're happy to insert that language in there.
Great. Everybody else okay with that? Any other comment?
Quick comment. I'm just looking at the full recommendation from the bond auditor and number 15, and it says this could include PPS providing the BAC with the same or similar bond data and staff analysis and memos currently provided to what used to be the SFIOC. So if as part of this recommendation, or as part of this update, you may want to consider whether or not you want to make sure that you guys are provided with any documentation that is provided to other committees, like our facilities committee.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we've always asked for that before, or asked for material that others get. Is that a problem, Liz, or anyone from doing it?
I think it's getting to the same objective, which is to make sure you have complete and accurate information about the status of projects and
Okay.
risks. I think I would lean towards defining that in the types of information you want, not what another committee necessarily got. I think you want to be sure it feels more expansive to me to say this is the subject. And also you can say to the staff at any time,
Right.
we want something else. I mean, this is the categories of information versus the source, not the source, but the other recipients of it. But I think the bond auditor and Janice and I are all trying to get to the same thing, which is you have complete and accurate information about the subject matter you're charged with.
Okay. So let's add the risk piece and then what was already stated in there, and then we could always have our catch-all. I think you have it, and any other information that the committee needs. Okay.
Well, sorry, where is that language? Where it has a catch-all?
I thought she said it was in here. Let's see,
Well, I said that there's an including phrase in terms of
Oh,
the
yeah.
feedback that it was limiting, and that including is not supposed to limit, it's supposed to be
Yeah.
examples or types, but not an exclusive list. So we could say receive and review reports and other information on the
Yeah.
current status and planned implementation of bond programs, including, and then we'll add risk. So that gets you a double expander there.
Right.
One in example and then one in the categories of information. Does that sound
Yeah.
sound okay? All right. Thank you. That's great. That's a change. Okay, the next one was add and recommendation, which is expanding, clarifying language. Any comment or question there? Okay. Replace overall with ultimate. Any comment or question on that one?
No.
And I think you folks noticed that where the gray ones, it was noted that that was more like clarifying language as opposed to the meatier stuff that is not great. Then we deleted the school district for streamlining the language.
Greg, I had an unrelated comment on that bullet. If that's okay. This is
Okay.
Chris.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is me speaking as a CPA. If you'll forgive me. But I just wondered if we could add any like materiality qualifiers for that statement, because we can't provide absolute assurance that bond revenues were expended only for the purposes that they were approved for. We just don't get that level of detail. We're not doing testing, that sort of thing. So, maybe based on the information that we're provided,
Right.
we've seen indications that they're not being used for purposes other than which they were approved, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. And whenever at least the two reports that I've made to the board in my written part, that's what I always say. Based on the information provided to us by the staff, it appears, or something to that effect.
I'll put that in the
Clarify our
intro.
show. Everybody understands.
Yeah,
somebody say
we'll put that in that intro sentence before the
Okay.
colon. So all of those bullets are subject to that modifier.
Good point.
Yeah, that sounds
Good
good.
call out.
Good catch.
Yeah, I'm happy to wait. I had a few others on this section as it relates to
Okay.
like budget management. You want me to say those right now? Okay.
Yeah. That's good.
One observation, there's a couple bullets that talk about managing to budget. There's a reference to whether the bond budget is sufficient, and then there's coming in on schedule and within established budget. I just wonder if there could be some collapsing to just talk about managing effectively against budget or something like that instead of having it be sort of sprinkled throughout. I also wondered, there's the emphasis on whether the budget is sufficient for the work, that is intended to be completed. I wonder though, and a lot of my focus in meetings is whether projects can come in under budget and funds can be returned back to, the overall bond fund and repurposed for other things like seismic, for instance. So I wonder, I just wouldn't want to over-index on making sure the budget is enough. I want to make sure that we're also looking for how we could achieve savings and come in under budget on projects.
Okay, that would, yeah. Our job is to obviously make sure that they complete it within the budget. And clearly, that's what we'd want to be pointing out to the board, right? I guess, and we could add, we want to think about what our role is, because the things that you talk about are things they want to do or may do, but unless our role is to find ways that they save, which isn't, if you look in here, that's not really our role, to find ways they save money. That hasn't been our role.
Yeah, that's a point taken. I guess, maybe what I'm speaking to is this list might lead me to ask the question, is this budget sufficient for the work you want to do? And that might be the right question. I guess I just also would want to be asking, how's it, are there ways you can come in below budget or, that sort of thing? Does that make sense?
It makes sense if we want that to be our role as the bond accountability committee. We're kind of a backstop in some regards to make sure that they stay within their lane. And so, what do the rest of you think? It's information to us. Be good to know. Where I think it becomes appropriate is when they do save money like they did on Lincoln, and then they decide to repurpose that money for other things. Does it meet the intent of the bond language that the people voted on? And that's where we would, again, provide a backstop that it did or it didn't, which is why in our next meeting, we're going to get, again, the language from all the bond measures. So we have that with us as we're looking.
What I was thinking as I was reading this, and I think we're at the point where there's a bullet and then there's alternative language around budgets, is that I'm a fan of the alternative language because as a volunteer committee, I just don't think there's any way a bunch of, me in this position, and won't speak for anybody else, can really opine on the budget sufficiency to complete a specific scope of work. Like, I'm not an expert in what it costs per square foot to build out, a high school and to build it at a certain seismic, level of, what's the word, resilience. So I liked the alternative language that was there. And when I think about cost savings, I think even without us asking it, that at a staff level and at the at the board of directors level, they're already asking that question constantly. And so what our role is really, if you've set a path and you said it's going to cost $400 million to do this school, that we see progress towards at least staying within that budget, and a forecasting of risk and a series of both identifying it and trying to come up with mitigating measures to eliminate the risk of cost overruns.
Other thoughts? There are some of us on the committee that probably do have some sense of whether the budget's sufficient or not to meet the goals that, they provide, which is why we're so diverse, why we have people in all sorts of areas to kind of give us that, Norm's not on the call, but he was an estimator for a large construction firm, so he kind of sees I don't care. What's your pleasure? We can stay with the language we have. We can do the alternative language. Does there anybody feel, Jonathan, you feel strongly about the alternative language?
I don't feel that strongly, and I take your point as somebody who's been around seismic reinforcement of unreinforced masonry buildings. That I'm like, I see what we're trying to accomplish with the budget we have, and I do have, do some questions about it. So
There you go.
I don't feel that strongly.
I think just for a point of reference, the difference in the language or in the other bullet point about budget is one goes to the bond program budget writ large, and the other goes to project budgets within the programs. So there are kind of two different budget levels there. One is in the aggregate, all the projects added up plus contingency, and then there's the project budget themselves. And you're looking at both. You're getting this is the 2017 bond program, and these are the things within it.
So it begs the question that instead of the alternate language, do you put the word and whether the bond projects conform to the applicable bond program budget and adherence to bond? Or is it, because it's not saying the same thing, right? Or is it? Scope of work is outlined in the bonds and whether, it's kind of.
Sorry, Greg, you kind of broke up a little bit in the middle of that. Would you mind saying again what?
I said, I'm reading it again and I'm wondering if it's actually an and statement. Are those two separate things or are they just two ways to say the same thing? And if they're two ways to say the same thing, then I'd probably just leave the language we already have in there. But I have to look at the author. Is that?
I think they're very close to saying the same thing. I think the intent of the alternate language is less about, they're going to involve some very similar analysis, but sufficient to complete is a cost estimating, and conform to the program budget is more consistent with the program budget. So if it's wildly, when Benson had to go back out for a second tranche of funding, between the 17 and 20 bonds, that would be an example where the project didn't conform to the 2017 program budget, one might say, not to dredge up that, but as an example.
No, and it was that problem that the board asked that the BAC be involved started getting more involved in the budgeting of the schools because of what happened to Benson, and it didn't meet the original budget and they had to go back out again. So they said, we want you folks to look at it, which we did on Jefferson. Spent a lot more time on that one than we had done so on previous bond measures.
Hey, I'm flashing and I'm sorry, my video is not working, but thank you, whoever elevated me. I was not as a panelist. I just want to point out something in this conversation. And again, pardon my flashing. Do you guys see me flashing? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, we do. It's okay.
Anyway, I think that it's really important that you all remember that the board asks a lot of questions and has a lot of oversight, but we don't have a lot of expertise. So this is an area where I do feel like that clarification from the staff, as long as you feel like it opens the door further to you sharing your expert opinion on things like this, I think that's of interest to me. Maybe that's helpful, maybe not, but I will just put that out there, that just as a reminder that your role to me is the expert advice to the board. So hopefully that's helpful.
Which is why, I think I'd probably leave the language as it is. It gives us enough room to go and do both things we want to do. We've done that before, and Benson was an example where we got more into it. Kara, you remember we got a lot more into it when we did Jefferson. We spent several meetings going over the Jefferson budget prior to the 2020 vote. So I just leave it where it is.
I think either one is honestly flexible enough to cover both things. I struggle a little bit because I'll just put this out here once for the record. Some of the ways that school districts discuss bonds, like the language that they use, is a little bit different than the way that bond industry professionals talk about bonds. So I get a little bit confused sometimes what some of the terms are actually trying to mean. I don't like, for instance, I don't know what a bond budget is. So in the existing language, I don't, I guess I can guess that it's the, you know, the amount of proceeds that were received from selling a particular series of bonds. But anyway, so because of that term, I think the other bond projects conforming to a bond program budget, I guess, makes a little bit more sense to me.
Okay.
But
I think you do want to fix that phrase because there isn't a bond budget. There's a program budget or there's a project budget, but there isn't a bond budget. But you could keep the original language and insert a
Program.
modifier there
Bond.
if you wanted. So I mean, but I think the point is well taken.
yeah, I honestly, I will say that I would love to add in a little bit of more standard industry language in some of these things, and kind of my goal is to kind of help this this group speak a little bit more, you know, what I don't want to say the wrong word, I guess, just kind of industry standard language. And so I think, you know, things like bond budget, it really should be the bond proceeds and any, bond proceeds from a legal standpoint even includes interest earned on the bond proceeds. So it is a kind of all-encompassing term, I think.
If that's what you mean, because there's also a program budget at the outset before the bonds are even sold.
Totally.
That is tied to
Yes.
the component
Correct.
part. So it's being
Correct.
precise about which
Yep.
term you want to
Yep.
be in play. Yeah,
Yep.
I hear you.
Just
Well,
and just
go
if I can loop back, Greg, just really quick to my initial question, whichever language we decide on, would it still allow us to ask about whether certain projects could be delivered less than the budget? Okay. And the reason I'm thinking about that, just to let you know, the anecdote that's kind of keeping me on this is the ERP project. And when we asked about, you know, hearing about some comps and what it might actually cost, what we heard is that I think the phrasing is like there's lots of space that'll be well below what was included in the budget. So I don't want to just ask if the budget is sufficient. I want to also know, you know, if it can be delivered, you know, at a lower cost than what's included in the budget. And those funds, those bond proceeds, could be used for some higher value purpose or better purpose, whatever the purpose is. But I want to be able to ask both ways.
Okay.
I think that the first paragraph that says the duties are to receive and review reports and other information on current status and planned implementation. Like, I think that broad language gets you access to the information. And then what you do with that in your updates to the board is what follows in those bullet points we've been talking about. But I think you certainly will should have access to that conversation and information.
Okay, so let me wrap this up if we can. We're going to change whether the bond proceeds are sufficient to complete the scope of work, but we also do want to know whether the bond proceeds are sufficient for the individual projects, because they have all been budgeted before they went into the $1.8 billion or whatever the board bill was. And I think that was important to us to see how we were staying on budget for each project.
So that's 3 bullets below that is the project, each
Okay,
of the
then I think-
projects.
Then we just change the second one to whether the bond proceeds are sufficient to complete the scope of work as outlined in the voter approved bonds. Does that get there, Travis?
I think so. Yeah.
Is that okay? All right. All right. Anything else before I check that one off with some changes?
I don't know if you, to Chris's point, I don't know if you want to just say, and if any, or if there are excess proceeds, what those proceeds may be able to fund or something like that. but we could also just leave it simple. I think all of this language is broad enough that I think we're not going to be prevented from doing any of the things that we're talking about.
Exactly. What the language in here is supposed to do is kind of our minimum of what we have to do, what we must get done in order to satisfy what the board asked us to do. And I don't see anything here that prevents us from doing exactly, and we've done it exactly what Chris has said. We've done that on several of the different projects. So
Yeah,
okay.
I think what in addition to all this like high level expansive language, we probably just, if there's anything on any of our minds that is like not specifically called out that we really do want to make a focus, then maybe we should add
Yep.
specific language for that.
Should I move on? We okay? The next one was consider, we already talked about that. The next one was add whether bond referral planning is consistent with PPS vision in the 30-year progressive bond program model. That's clarifying language. I gotta say, I don't know that we've ever seen that, but anybody have an issue with that? I assume that's part of our job. I guess the point there for me is that when the staff's giving us a report, you need to tell us if it's not consistent with their vision. Okay.
I actually don't know the precise source of this recommended language, but we certainly can provide a copy of the district's vision
Okay.
To the committee.
Hey, Greg, did we skip one, the committee or in the matrix, the item that says and include annual review of bond performance audits and district financial audits as it relates to bond expenditures? Did we cover that already, or did we skip that one?
We skipped it. I checked it off, but I checked it off, but maybe. Or maybe I checked it off in my own mind.
I don't have any comments on that one though.
I don't either. So it's in there. So unless anybody has any comments, we've checked it off. It's a go.
I have a couple of suggestions as it relates to the bonds or the BAC's involvement in our bond performance audit. So we can talk about those kind of at the end if you want to, but there is one as it relates to our bond performance audit.
And those weren't shown in the matrix on the back page under other suggestions then, Janice? Is that right? They had a bunch. I mean, I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
So on the back page, no, I don't think that's captured. Oh wait, I had the other suggestion is revisiting the topics and the scope for the annual performance audit work plan, to revisit that statement. So that statement is a couple like on the next page. So we can talk about it when we get there.
Okay.
If you want to.
That's fine.
Okay.
Remind me when we get there so I don't go past it. Next one was add each of the projects. That was clarifying language. Any problem with that? Okay. Now remove relative to the voter approved bonds, clarifying language. Individual project budgets are not voter approved. That's true. So. Any problem with that? The next one, whether the district's bond program management is consistent with industry.
I'll just say, Chair Wong has his hand up.
I'm sorry, who did? Oh, Chair Wang, I'm sorry. I'm looking down at my sheet.
Oh, no worries. I thank you for, I'm just wanting to say, I have to go. I have another meeting, but I just want to, before I go, really thank you for all your work. I think that the Bond Audit Committee provides incredible value to the district and improving our work, and also to the board. And I think we don't do a good enough job vocalizing how your work has impacted our decision-making process and improving the district's work. But anyways, I wanted to listen in today, but I have to go. I just want to thank you all for everything that you do. I can't imagine all the volunteer hours that you have to put in. So thank you, and
thank you for stopping by. Appreciate
I'll
it.
listen in for a bit.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so we all good? We're at whether the district's bond program management is consistent with industry standards. So that's going to be interesting.
I was going to ask Travis how he felt about that and if it aligned with the language goals and talking about the bonds the way that the language should be reflective.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One, I think that it's a good bullet, and I think it leaves us available to really ask a whole bunch of questions, and because I guess I question a little bit like the term industry standards. That's fine. That's not a huge deal, but I wonder if like best practices might be a better term to use, but either way is fine. Honestly, what I was talking about before, it's largely related to the fact that people tend to, and it's not just PPS, it's at school districts everywhere, talk about the thing that they're voting on as a bond. Like, we're going to vote for a bond, and that's just not technically accurate language, but it is very widely used by not only district personnel all over the country, but the general public. And I think, because it's called a bond measure, and like it could be a tax measure, it could be I don't know, there's all sorts of different type of measures to vote on. And because this is a bond measure, people tend to just be like, oh, we approved a bond. And it's just, bonds are things that you sell in the market. You get proceeds for selling all the bonds. So it's kind of that mostly, and it kind of weasels its way throughout the language that's used in, a lot of the reports that are used. And so that's kind of what I was talking about. I don't think that it doesn't imply that they're doing anything wrong or at odds with industry standards in terms of bond, debt program management or anything like that. But so that's the clarification of what I was kind of referring to.
A little different. This one was whether or not, Sarah and the gang and everyone here is managing the program consistent with the norms of project management.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
How do you feel about that? So we haven't in the past weighed in on their management skills. We know we have success if they bring the project in on time and on budget. Then they must have managed it okay. Was that in there before? That's adding language. Yeah, that's adding language.
I also want to bring up that I added a suggestion for the BAC to consider whether monitoring and reporting on some key performance indicators in the Presidio contract would be something that the BAC may consider adding to their list of mini charges. So maybe the two of those, maybe that suggestion might be tied to this bullet point.
So do they have KPIs? Have they done them?
I'll have to let somebody else jump in.
We have a our deliverable within our contract was a project management plan, which is very typical of a program that we have delivered to the district. And within that document, there are multiple KPIs for the department as a whole. So those have been provided to the district
Well, then that would.
within the first 90 days, within the first 90 days of our contract. Yes.
Then it seems to me that would be a reasonable thing for us to, since we're looking at the budget and we're looking at the program, we probably ought to look at how you folks are doing. You would report to us how you're measuring up against what you propose to the board. And then we and some of our expertise would be able to opine on any comments we might have.
And I think the question I have just from a governance language perspective is, what is the charter language to effectuate that? That may not be tied to a specific Presidio contract per se, but it's the program management and or, that maybe that bullet that's in there now that we're talking about isn't sufficient. And if the board wants something specific, the board can be very targeted to say to the committee, but this is the charter. So it's not about not monitoring and assessing or not monitoring, assessing. It's how to draft the governing document about that it fits under specifically under a broader umbrella.
Yeah, and that's what I see. This is a general statement that we would look at all management, and not only them, but the PPS staff itself. And we've got in the past, we've gotten reports on what the percentage of management dollars are being spent on the project versus the other parts of it.
I mean, what about it? I don't know, Liz, if you think this would be too broad, but if you said whether the district's bond and capital program management is consistent with it, like if you add I know not all the whole capital program is not funded with bonds, but and I know that our charter is sort of directly about bond related funding. But because so much of the capital program is funded with bonds, it's sort of hard to answer the bond related question without kind of at least having some opinion on the general capital program management.
Well, it seems if you add and general capital management, you're getting a pretty small increment of capital spending that's not bond. Your charter already covers
totally.
the vast majority. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is capital program management has everything to do with managing your projects. It has nothing to do with the funding, really. It's how do you manage projects on time and budget, like regardless of funding source. And so I guess just to me, it's a clarification that we're not, because to me, a bond program is actually your debt management. It's like how you make sure you don't issue too much debt and that you can afford to pay, and that voters are likely to continue to support new bond measures in the future to fund your capital program, all that kind of stuff. So they're very tied, but I think the capital program is, more the project management stuff and
you're going to in PPS land. I completely understand and appreciate the point, and it may be a unique attribute to how things are described here, but the Presidio team is not working on non-bond funded capital projects. They are only working on bond funded capital projects. So if you are trying to expand the scope of the assessment, that will be a much broader umbrella. That will not be just Presidio. That will be other staff. Sure. for I'm trying to think of, like, there's some Joanna leads that team, so she can
grant funded PTA volunteer donations.
That's not really what I'm getting at. I thought Greg was kind of saying that I thought the conversation was sort of headed in Presidio is managing the projects, and that maybe that is a little bit it sounded like people were suggesting that an assessment of their KPIs and their project management approach and all that kind of stuff was maybe expanding our scope a little bit more than what it had been, but maybe I misheard that.
I mean, we're in some new territory with a contracted bond program management contract now. So that is new territory in all the contexts. They manage some of the capital programs, but they do not manage all of them. So I think and maybe this is a question to the board ultimately of, what does the board want the BAC in your volunteer capacity to inform? Is it about the outsourced program management per se, or is it a broader look across multiple functions? And I just don't know. Outside the bond is a different lane, but it's a pretty narrow lane. It's pretty small projects, not a lot in it. Presidio is part of the bond funded lane, but not all of it.
No, I understand. I think I was thinking about it a little bit differently than that, but I guess, Greg, can you restate what you were suggesting?
Yeah, my point was that there are staff assigned to, for want of a better term, the bond funded projects. Okay. And so what we would be doing is reviewing the staff piece of that, as well as the piece that Presidio is doing. But these are I understand the terminology, but these are the projects that are funded with the bond proceeds. And yes, they may have other money that's brought into it, and they do. In many cases, if you look at our previous projects, there was other general funds that came in to pay for some of these projects. But they all started out as a bond proceeded project. Nothing, I don't think, ever got thrown into the work we were looking at that wasn't started out from the bond proceeds. That was how they fundamentally were paid. And then, as you know, Travis, you start going through them and you find out, well, that's not money. You can't use bond proceeds to pay for that part.
Yeah.
Well, then they started adding other funds in there. So I'm just looking at what really are bond proceed projects. However, the total project gets funded.
Right. If there's $1 bond in there, it's our purview is the way.
Yeah, right.
Is what I think.
And that's what the board wanted. They wanted, at least what I recall, they wanted to ensure the people that voted for those bonds were getting their money's worth and it was being properly spent, and just kind of another step in the process for that insurance. I don't know. I mean, maybe the board does want us to look, but you're right. There's very little money spent on anything else at Portland Public Schools, capital-wise, that isn't one of these projects. And there's a few things. I don't think they.
So sorry,
Jonathan.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry to start stammering over you. I'm thinking back to the question about key performance indicators. We were on a bullet about program management and being consistent with industry standards. I think key performance indicators are great, and I think they're relevant to keeping things on track, whether it's PPS staff that's spearheading a project or Presidio staff. And so I am thinking we do want to see some kind of regular accounting, tracking of key performance indicators. And the place, if we agree as the committee that we want that, the place to put that would be up on the previous page, in that paragraph about what the duties of the committee are, about receiving and reviewing reports, and we could just add key performance indicators in there. And that just covers it broadly, whether it's Presidio doing the work, Presidio staff, PPS staff, doesn't matter. We just want to make sure that key performance indicators are being watched and being reported on in a way that's publicly accountable.
Because otherwise, I don't know how we're going to measure this unless some of us that have done construction sit at their desk or something. I'm not sure how we're going to measure it. That's why the KPI piece helps us a little bit, because they've set standards for how they're going to do it.
I think this is a question to the staff. The Presidio contract has led to their work, but I don't know that there's a consistent, if it's done the same way on the staff side. I think that's a question not to solve in this conversation, but just if the charter says KPIs and there's one thing under the Presidio contract and there's a different measurement for staff, is that intended? Is it not? Does that exist? I mean, those are just questions about what that language will mean for the non-Presidio managed work. So I'll put that to the PPS team to think about.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm back blinking. That's how I raised my hand. I just want to get it out and get back off camera quick. I think that, yeah, getting the language right is important, but as far as I know, the key performance indicators language is kind of helpful because we know we'll have it for the contract per Sarah, but I don't know that we have them for staff. So that might kind of be a way of, I don't know, Liz, if you agree, but I think that might be a way to like differentiate what we're talking about. Maybe that would help, but maybe I'm wrong. I will now go off video again.
I think it's ultimately a question, what's helpful to the board, what is the board asking the BAC
Exactly.
to examine to
Right.
help the board
Right.
in its oversight responsibilities. So it may end up being a further conversation at the board level when this comes, but I think staff's gonna have to bring some information about what these KPIs look like on both sides so that the expectations are clear.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. Thanks.
So that one needs to be fleshed out a little further, right? I mean, and I guess, one of the things I'd ask for, maybe we can get it, is an organization chart of how the two groups are meshed together. Then we can see there may not be any work that I don't mean this in that kind of way, but actual construction management work that the PPS staff is doing in it, but maybe there is. And so, but I don't even know. Okay, so we'll flesh that one out a little bit more before we sign off on it. Next one, remove the committee will receive and review. That was deleted repetitive language. Any problem with that? Okay. Add as they relate to the bond programs. So I'm okay with it unless you want to add the words, the bond proceed programs, but.
No, that wouldn't quite be. I think bond, bond funded capital program is sort of the most accurate.
All right.
Way, but that's
capital. Okay, bond funded capital program. So add that. Replace appropriate ways to address with the district's plan to increase seismic safety. Did anybody have a question with that?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to clarify, is it just implementation of that plan or is it the generation of that plan? I think Jonathan's asked questions and implied he has thoughts and curiosity about how the plan is, and how it's generated and developed. And those two things are different. Like how, you know what I mean? Like over time, how do you develop the plan and then how do you implement it are different. And if we're just talking about implementation, that seems to bring up different questions than the development of the district's plan.
Well, one of the things we have on our agenda for this month, our real meeting, is going to be a presentation on the seismic safety plan for us to look at.
So I might just change this to say development and implementation of the district's plan to improve seismic.
Okay, I think that plan is cooked, and that's okay. And it really might just be that we're at a point where we're at the implementation.
Well, isn't it an ongoing thing though? Through time, it's going to continue every 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now. There's going to be
point taken. Okay, really,
because they didn't have enough money to do all the schools.
Yeah.
Great point, Travis. That's
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do development and implementation.
Okay.
And also I would just say improve instead of increase.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got those down? Oh, go ahead, Janice, sorry.
The BAC be interested in providing a recommendation or advice to the board on the prioritization of the list?
That's what I was sort of wondering, but I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's outside.
I mean, yeah, based on what we've heard so far, I think we're better off looking at the development of the plan and using our expertise to see if, they went through a process where they had a structural engineer come in, they've assigned a ranking based on that. And we would be better served sticking to that lane where it's technical
Yeah.
And because as you know, everyone, you've been to this, if you've listened to those meetings at the school board and other places, it goes beyond that with the folks that are impacted by the decision. So I like being an engineer in the background. It would be easier for us to look at the plan and see if the structural engineer provided the right kind of thought process in doing it. And I think we would be well served to do
I
that.
think even if you determine from an engineering background or otherwise that there was something you had concerns about, this language certainly invites you into that conversation, and nothing prevents you from weighing in on that if you determined there was a concern.
Everybody good with that? Okay, where was it? Let's see, it's this. Okay. Oh, so okay, the next one was replace will with should. That's a legal thing. So one of them gives us, one of them says we will do it, the other says we should. Should gives us more flexibility to, I suppose, not do it, right?
I think both words and convey an expectation that it should be there. Right?
So
It
Liz, you
just
would
will
recommend this
will
this kind of-
declares that it's a thing that will happen and you actually have to do it. So it's more of a directive instead of a declaration. And I don't care that much. So I certainly feel strongly like it's not the thing we should spend a lot of time on, but
Okay, so we just, if everyone's fine with it, we should do it. All right. I'm with you. Let's see. The committee will review regular reports, deleting repetitive language. If no one has a problem with that, we'll take it out. I got to stop here for a time break. It's 4:55. Said this meeting was going to 5. Are you folks? We're about halfway through. If there's a faster way, I'm certainly open to it, but if we're not going to get through all of them. So do you want to keep going? Do you want to
I could
schedule
stay
another
past.
meeting?
I could stay past 5, but I don't know that others can.
Everybody okay with that? No one
I-
has March Madness they got to get to for tonight's final game?
I do have to get downtown to a 5:30, but I can stay for another 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep going. We'll make as much progress as we can. Let's see. Where are we? So next one was to add, the board may request the committee by resolution undertake other reasonable duties related to the bond programs. Oh, the board may. And I assume that that's the only way they can ask us to do something is to go through a resolution process, right?
they don't have any, they can't act individually, so they have to act as a collective, and the resolution is the mechanism by which they do
I mean, they
that.
couldn't just make a motion. Okay, so they wouldn't just make a motion at a board meeting to say, yeah, we all agree, let's have them do it. They got to actually do a resolution to.
It could be an oral, I would view that as the equivalent, right? It requires a vote of all of them to express the intent, or at least a majority of them to express the intent of the board, whether that's orally in a meeting or that's in a written resolution. That's the only way the board can give you a direction. Yeah.
Right. So is this language what we want to have there to do that, or do you want to have more flexibility for the board? Because it says they're going to do a resolution. I'll leave that to you, Liz. It doesn't matter.
Thank
It
you.
doesn't matter to us. They tell us to do something, we'll do it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take care of it.
All right. Let's see. Next one was add the reporting structure and cadence section. Clarify board expectations about, okay, I got this one printed. This was to work with the BAC to establish protocols for voting and formalizing any relevant recommended advice at its meetings.
My only question about this section is what is a full report? First bullet says full report to the board. And I get that this is a charter document and things can be at 30,000 feet, but I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, full report's what we give them. We write it up and then
I guess maybe we determine what's full. I don't know. It's
I think so.
Okay, well,
It's
maybe that
whatever we
works.
Yeah, is the content of our quarterly reports specified?
No, we actually worked it out a long time ago. I mean, when I first came on this thing, Carrie, you recall, the board chair wrote this report. It was kind of disjointed. So then we started talking about how we could do it a little more, make more sense and actually get the high points to the board. And then when Tom Peterson became the chair, he and Kara, they put together a template for us that addresses the questions that are on the first page of what we're supposed to be doing. And we would answer each of those questions. And that way, we were really doing our job by answering those questions, and that was considered. And I think and I like that template. It's the person that now has to prepare this report, because you just go through and answer the questions, and then anything else that we wanted to look at that was in the second piece. So
I would delete full. I did not catch that the many times I've looked at this. I think it's an odd modifier. It doesn't tell you much, and it's confusing. It's not to minimize your report in any way, but it is. It's very vague. So
I wonder if it would make sense, because the distinction between these two seem to be basically a regular quarterly report and then other ad hoc reports as needed. So I wonder if it's just take out full and then instead of written reports, as if I don't know what other kind of reports we would provide other than written, but
or in person. I think some of this language came from places that I don't have the full roots on, but I do think one of the concerns was that we'd gotten away from in-person reports to the board quarterly. Written could happen at any time, but quarterly is in person was, I think, the attempted distinction here.
And that was our concern as BAC members. We went through a process or a time where we were told we didn't even report to the board anymore. We were only going to report to, even though the charter said we were supposed to, we were only going to report to the subcommittee. So,
and then we even got away from that, during just the annual transition of board members. And then that was also why we created the report template, and it was specifically charter aligned. So the only thing that would need to maybe change with the report now is based on changes to this charter that maybe we aren't addressing in the current report that we would need to update.
Right.
Okay. So maybe, if you remove full, then the other ones, they're both fine.
So we just keep them both the way they are. But the one does say we'll make our report to the board in person. Okay. Sound good? Now let's see. Then we have the meeting protocol section. Does anybody having trouble with that? I mean, we didn't used to, it was a long time, probably 5 years, where there weren't any minutes taken of this meeting. And so now we've gotten back to doing that. And so unless anybody has a problem, I think even because we are a public body, so we have to follow the Oregon Public Meetings Law, which says we have to have minutes. They don't have to be detailed. They don't have to be verbatim, but we got to have something. And so, that's not really a discussion point for us. We have to do it. It has to be done. Next item was to remove approximately, making the language more definitive. Anybody have a concern with that? Yeah. Okay. That was a number of members that we would have. Right. Then we were to add public in there as well. Yeah, construction and or public construction financing, that's fine. Right, everybody okay with that? Okay, and then
what is the distinction there? Construction
public construction
financing, what's the?
I think there are different financing mechanisms for public versus private projects. So just in aspirational state to have experience in the public construction financing arena, like geo bonds.
Right.
Sorry, I missed that this was under the committee membership part. That makes sense.
Yeah, these are the people we want to get on here. So
yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll add curriculum development and technology, and that's good. We did it without being defined because Carrie, you came on as our technology person. We never got a curriculum one, but so we've done that. But actually calling it out is important.
And I like that language because it provides for anything that may come in the future that's under the bond scope too.
Right.
Greg, before I have to drop, and I'm so sorry, My schedule is always crazy. I saw one of the recommendations that is not in here is changing the cadence of the BAC meetings.
Right.
And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because in the very first part of the charter, it does talk about the members reviewing quarterly reports and audits of the bond dollars. And so I feel like that first statement is very prescriptive, particularly if we're going to change the number of meetings we have per year, because then we would meet 6 times. So I'm like, what are we doing in the other 2 meetings if we're not reviewing a report? So I don't know if we're going to change the number or the meeting cadence, because I know that's a lot of reporting on the BAC, but that feels prescriptive in that background. And maybe it's because it's the background it needs to stay, but we've been 6 meetings, we've been 4 meetings, we've kind of been back and forth.
Okay. Do you have a position on 4 versus 6?
I mean, I really, really like to go to bed at 7:45. So if 6 meetings mean I'm done and home by then versus the 3-hour quarterly meetings, I'm all for 6.
My thoughts on it were to not change it in the charter, but we can have 6 meetings if we want to. And then if we couldn't make 6, we at least have to have quarterly meetings. Okay,
And
so that's the minimum we can do, but we could
So maybe that's in membership, and then the
always
background.
ourselves start.
Greg's frozen. Oh, you're unfrozen.
Yeah. Was I frozen?
I was just going to say, maybe it states somewhere that there's a minimum of 4 meetings a year, but it doesn't restrict us to reviewing quarterly reports in that background, because there are also times where we've reviewed the audit and not had the audit presented to us, and then we've seen that and then met with the auditors.
So it does currently say under the committee meeting section that we'll meet no less than quarterly.
Right. We'll meet no less than quarterly.
So then I think it can come out of the top in the background.
Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. Anything else before you sign off, Kara? You good?
No, thank you.
Thanks. Righty.
So I have a quick comment as it relates to the number of meetings. It may be really helpful if you guys were to decide if you did want to have 6 meetings in the next year, you were specific about it in the beginning of that year. So everybody could plan for 6 and spread the work out that's going to be provided to you guys over the course of 6 meetings versus 4.
No, I agree. One of the things we haven't done a great job of is putting together a meeting calendar for the year. And we need to do 6, we'll do 6. But I guess it relates to our charter. I like being more flexible than more prescriptive in some ways. And so I'd rather leave it as quarterly meeting. We decide at the first of the year or whatever that we're going to do 6 because we've got a lot of work to do and we know we can't get it done. And Kara wants to go to bed by 7:45. And so, we'll just pull that all together and do that. Where that meeting schedule was. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I mean, one thing that I was on another bond accountability committee in California, and one thing we did was and I'm not suggesting this, just to food for thought. But once a year we would meet and plan out our meetings and actually have a tentative, it would change, but a tentative set of topics for each meeting and work that we'd try to get done in that year. So something to think about. I mean, it might help even if we did a real light version of that, just sort of have and the other thing is, if we made it a little bit more common to, we have one of our normal quarterly scheduled meetings and then we hit a wall and we're like, can we meet before the next quarterly meeting? We can just add them in as literally as needed as we're
Like
going
this
through.
meeting. This meeting's a
Exactly.
perfect example of that. Yep.
Exactly.
Although it was difficult to schedule this meeting.
It is difficult to schedule, but I was thinking even if we set up a 1 hour like this meeting that now is, over an hour, but 1 hour meeting that where we do at the beginning of each year kind of at least have a rough guess, like, the next quarter we're going to cover this, the quarter after that we're going to cover this. And then that also gives staff time to prepare any kind of longer term feed, items that we're asking for.
Yeah, works for me.
But I think we should also just in this document leave it as it
Quarterly?
is. Yeah, no less than quarterly.
Okay, that's great. Everybody else okay with that? Nods their head. We're all good. All right. The next item was the committee shall be composed of a mix. That's just deleting language. You okay with that? Okay. Then we had, let's see, we had a thing in here that said, it said within 1 year of, oh, there it is. Members are, where is it? Oh, here it is. A committee member may not have an active or pending contract with the district within 1 year of their term on the committee. Liz, does that mean, so we had this happen where it wasn't the person that had a contract, but they went to work for a firm that's why they quit. Actually, they quit us. They took a job with a firm that did have did have work with the district. I assume here you're talking about I have a company and I'm on the board and I get a contract within a year, which we wouldn't allow. But is that not what we mean?
It's like, it's not to bid on work or intentionally engage in work. The lens being that there's not much different from your term of service and the day after you leave. And what's the reasonable period of time where you wouldn't have specialized information in that process, or that your influence on the committee, and then none of you is going to do this, right? This is just good practice, right? But make decisions that would influence the thing that's about to happen as soon as you leave, right? That's the optics of that.
So that
But
would
it's-
imply that
yeah.
that would apply to somebody that goes to work for a company then, right? That this, I think she was an architect. You guys remember?
Yeah, I remember.
And we had that issue.
It's enter into contract. I mean, maybe it's the entering into. I don't know. What we don't want to do is constrain the volunteer pool of really qualified, generous people like you all are to give your time and talents to this, and also just make sure we protect the optics of, it's not really insight, but it's access to additional information or influence. And really you're making recommendations to the board. So I mean, I think this is a really good, let's be real about what matters and what doesn't here, because the optics matter, but the reality of the work you do and what it does and doesn't influence, I think is worthy of discussion, because we really do want to keep good people doing this work. So
The clarifying question, is this meant to be on both sides of the term of the committee? So if I have a contract that ends 6 months before I join the committee, would that disqualify me, or is this just meant to be contracts after?
At the end. I think it's at the end.
Yeah, you might make the language more precise then.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, I get what you're saying, Liz. You don't, and I think it's even in Oregon ethics law, isn't it? That this provision, or maybe there's one that's 2 years. That might be the nepotism one, but
there are various pieces. I think certainly clarifying the end of the term makes sense.
Yeah, I'll get at that. All right. The next one is remove a committee member serves to advise the board, and we have stronger governance language. Serves at the direction of the board.
I mean, I think that the committee serves to advise the board, right? That's I think the point of that.
Yeah, gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay. We all good with that? All right. And it just says, it clarifies that we all serve at the discretion of the board and we can be removed by a majority. That's standard. Not sure how we changed that. We have the staggered 2, 3, and 4-year terms. That's been there for a while. Definition that may need to be clarified. Current language not clear.
That's my note on there. I can't tell if this is still a thing that needs to be it sounds like language at the beginning of a charter where you're bringing everybody on at once and you want to stagger so that they don't expire all at once. And I'm not sure that that's the reality. And so that was my Sudoku staff member, like trying to figure out what the align with terms and what's helpful language.
So we don't really need it since we don't. Yeah. Well, the only thing is, the only thing is we've had, if we have 2 or 3 resignations, we're going to bring on 2 or say 2 or 3 people. We could lose our quorum, for example, if, we had some resignations and then we all line up. So we probably still need the ability to have staggered terms. We don't come in with staggered terms. We come in with our particular term of office, but
the board may designate a term of 2, 3, or 4 years. Is that kind of the flexible language?
Right.
That would solve for that?
That would solve the problem. Yeah.
Do we want to also add, just to be extra safe, that the board can extend
past the 8 years?
What's that?
Yeah, I know it past the 8 years.
Yeah, just particularly to save from losing a quorum or having everybody expire at the same time or whatever the thing is.
No, it's a good point. They asked Tom to stay on an extra year. He had his 8 years go by, and they said, I don't know who asked him, but somebody asked him, and he stayed on for 9 years. He was on.
And I would just observe that the board has that inherent authority anyway, since it owns the charter. It could do that, but we can make sure that the board knows that, and if it wants explicit language reminding itself of that, we can also do that. So just
okay. I don't feel strongly
under this section. And I want to talk about for the second. So right now we have a chair. We talk about that, and we need to add a vice chair to this committee. Okay. So I think we should have it in here that says we will have a vice chair. I mean, we could probably add a vice chair on our own regardless, but we should probably have it. The other thing is it says no more than 3 years. I'm on another advisory committee where we elect the chair and the vice chair at the first meeting each year, and the current people can keep doing it. They get reelected again, but each year we go through that there kind of offers an off-ramp. If you don't really like the chair you have, for example, you're gonna elect a new one each year, or if somebody says, I just can't do it anymore. So they can be the chair, they can be the vice chair for 3 years, but an election will occur at the first meeting of each year.
And this is my own naivete being, I should know the answer to this. Is the chair currently elected or is that appointed by the board?
No, it's elected by us.
Elected, okay. And so both positions.
We picked our chair. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's supposed to be, but that's how we did it.
Well, I think the charter is not clear on that.
The fact is, Liz, clarify. We pick our chair by trying to find somebody that'll actually do it.
Yeah, no, I know. Thank you again. Thank you for your service. We really appreciate it.
Not a contested election.
Okay, so chair and vice chair elected. And I'm sorry, what did you say about the no more than 3 years?
Yeah, what it says in here, no more than 3 years shall be elected at the first meeting of each calendar year. So in other words, I get elected in my 3rd year. I'm going to be on here for 8 years. I can only do 3 years as chair. The next 2, somebody else has to take it over. Assuming you don't get booted out before then.
Okay, we'll add that.
Is that okay with everybody else? Good. Okay. Hey, we're on the second page. We got
it.
Not too bad. We got the second page, although there's a lot of meaty stuff below here. Add in a public meeting, a quorum of the committee. Oh, that's just a clarifying one that I said. Some notes about this. We don't say it in here, Liz, so maybe we don't have to. But it goes without saying, all of our meetings have to comply with the Oregon Public Meetings Law. We don't say that in here. We talk about quorums, we talk about may meet in person, can do email, but there are some new public meeting law requirements. The only reason I know this is I had to take the Oregon Government Ethics course on public meetings for one of the other advisory boards I'm on. You have to do a roll call. You have to do the equivalent of a roll call when you vote. There's a whole bunch. So do we need any language like that, or does it go without saying? We also don't say we'll follow Robert's Rules of Order. I've got another committee that does that. I don't know if we need any of that stuff, but
I think it would be helpful to add just that statement.
I think it is too. I agree.
okay. Then
I'll add a sentence that says why, because you are a board that
Right.
appoints, that reports to, appointed by and reports to the school board, a public governing body. The public meeting laws apply to you, and that's the
key. Okay, thank you. Let's see here. Yes. Replace documentary with written. Okay, anybody have a problem with that? And the next one was and be asked to. Oh yeah. It says district project consultants may be asked to attend committee meetings at the discretion of district staff. Oh, or I added, or by request of the committee. So in other words, I think this was referring to in the past, that Marina would bring in her project managers, and she'd ask them to attend and they'd give reports. But, sometimes the committee wanted to hear from somebody that has particular expertise. So we would want to request that, like the head of the EA, was it EAP, EAR or whatever, we ask them to come in and talk to us, or, the person that's going to do the seismic, for example.
I think you guys have also asked for financial related information. So our CFO has come before.
Right. She's coming this month too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's coming. Yeah, right. Exactly, Janice. So, I mean,
I think this is
this
about
isn't a
third
case where
party.
we're going to try
This
to
is
bring in
about
some.
outside consultants, right? This is about bringing that
Seismic.
bullet is about the external consultants. I think PPS staff is already very much in service of the
Yeah, it says
committee.
district
This is
project consultants. Yeah.
who has authority to bring in people who get paid by the hour to talk to the committee, right? That's and we can add language that says the committee can
Request. That's all.
request. Yeah.
Yeah. I said by request of the committee. Then you go, no, we're not doing it.
I think the committee request by committee I think it's more than appropriately is more than a request. If the committee requests it, unless there's some reason it can't happen, I think the expectation is staff would deliver.
Right.
Yeah, follow up on that.
Anything else?
We can add that.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, next item, add media relations section. Did anybody, we have had requests for the media, but anybody have a problem with that language?
Yeah, I don't know the origins of that requested language, so.
Or where it came from? It didn't come from us, but I don't think.
That's OSM communications, we should probably change.
What's that?
OSM Communications will fix the title of that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Joanna, thank you, pointed that out.
Yeah. All right. Everybody okay with that? All right. We had replaced businesses with organizations, so that's fine. Okay, now we get into some heavy duty stuff. Yeah, formalize. So this is kind of you, right? This is formalize the BAC recruiting and application process. But that's really comes out of the school district. In fact, we don't even have anything to do really with the applications. I asked this year to take a look at them just to see if we were getting a broad cross-section of people with experience, so we weren't all bunched up into one area. But really, the school district takes care of getting people, they average advertise, they recruit them, they take it to the board. Isn't that right?
Janice, I
That's
don't
right.
recall if the external auditor who made the recommendation meant, when they say formalize, if they meant put it in the charter, this charter, or formalize it elsewhere. So, or I don't know that, I don't recall, but I don't have it in front of me that it was a targeted recommendation to the BAC charter per se. Could be.
Yeah, I don't recall it being necessarily specifically targeted to the charter. If there's a want to have it included in the charter, that would be a great place. But if not, like PPS formalizing their own processes and procedures would probably work to satisfy that recommendation.
I mean,
And we're already in the process of doing that. That was not done prior to our arrival.
we had
but
trouble.
we're currently have an SOP drafted for that.
I think it makes more sense in an SOP just because the conditions under which you're looking for people of certain, I mean, there may be different processes over time depending on the need and timeline. And so a charter document is harder to amend if there's something that needs to happen, as long as they are formalized to satisfy the bond auditor's recommendation.
Okay. Good on that one. Next one was, okay, we talked about the meeting frequency already, so we're gonna do what we talked about. Let's see. Revisit the following statement that the committee may request additional documents and provide advice to PPS staff on topics agreed upon by the committee and PPS staff. So do we not have?
So that is a statement in your charter.
Yes.
And I was hoping you would revisit it to clarify under what circumstances that may will become a will.
Oh.
It just says on topics agreed upon by the committee and staff. What if you guys want more information about like the ERP and staff doesn't necessarily want to? So the word may could come into play in a situation where you request specific information. Not saying it would, but if when it says may, and then you have to, upon agreement with the committee and staff, it would be more ideal if it just said agreed upon by the committee.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I know.
Kind of. What page is it on, Janice?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Just found it. It's top of page, like the 20% of the way down page 3.
Yes.
So,
oh yeah, the committee
so this
may request
is, yeah, so I think the way anything north of that statement is already in the purview of the committee, right? So if you said the ERP is a bond funded project, if the committee said we need information on the ERP, the staff doesn't have to agree with that for you to have that. That's already been conferred by the charter. I view this as kind of sorry, I couldn't find it. I've read it a million times. Catch-all language about other things that may not be clarified in the charter. And that's that mutually agreed upon scope. Whether that's the right standard or not is for you all to make a recommendation and the board to decide. But I think that's the purpose of that language, is if you're asking for information that may be outside the scope of this and staff agrees, that would be helpful, even though there's not a place in the charter for it. But it isn't to give staff discretion to say you can't have information about bond funded programs and projects.
Probably wouldn't read right if we said the committee will request additional documents and provide advice on topics agreed upon, because we may not even need additional documents. I get what you're getting at there, because we have had concerns about not getting the information we wanted, yeah, I do.
Well, so I would just want to clarify that on page 2, midway through, the term may is still included in the sentence where it says, additionally, the committee may provide feedback and or advice to the board on one or more of the following topics as they relate to the bond programs. So like, why is the term may used with those under that category versus the term will used in the paragraph above? So what determines if you will, if the committee will provide feedback on those items or not?
Because the
Whether
paragraph
those are-
above was what was in the charter that we were supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. Now, we as a committee have decided, we're nosy people. And so we want to look at some other things from time to time. And so we've had this conversation amongst the committee previously that, maybe we want to give some, now the board could change this. The board could say the committee will provide feedback and or advice and tell us to do it.
It has to go, it
But
also
from my
speaks to.
perspective, our charter. No, I don't swear. It's okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, there's every once in a while your sound glitches, and I thought you were done, and I started
Oh.
talking. And I want to acknowledge
I
that
know
Chris's hands up, so I'll just finish this thought and then I'll sit quietly. I think it speaks I read the may there as speaking to also relevance, capacity, right? These in 4 to 6 meetings a year. These are well within your scope, but you may not be reporting on them every time. The will triggers a little more obligation that may or may not be in play, but the discretion is yours, not staff there. Sorry, we're Chris, go.
Yeah, thank you. Janice,
Chris,
going back to your recommendation to, as I understood it, to remove the requirement that there's an agreement between the committee and PPS staff for additional documents that are requested. My hesitation with that is that we could unknowingly or not request something that's really onerous and administratively burdensome to provide to the committee. And I would want to hear about that, from PPS staff. We may choose to really push to get that information, even if it is burdensome to produce, but I'd want to know whether we're, posing significant burden on them and causing inefficiencies. So I'm comfortable with talking about language still.
Okay, one final point of
Go ahead.
comment in this sentence. It says the committee may request additional documents and provide, and then the next 3 words are important. It says advice to PPS staff on topics they agree upon by the committee and the staff. So this is the advisory committee to the board. And then it has this sentence in here about, the committee may advise staff on things that they agree upon with the committee and PPS staff agree upon. So it just the advice to PPS staff part, if y'all are interested in providing PPS staff advice on specific elements, maybe not necessarily items that are advice to the board as a whole, this is the sentence that you may want to think about and expand upon if that is of interest to you guys.
I think this kind of relates to actually back to making sure that the bond programs / capital project management is adhering to industry norms. You have a bunch of people with varying experience and perspectives, and I think that's where the staff can just benefit from us given, or it doesn't have to be followed, but we can make recommendations and just say, hey, we'd like to share our expertise and this is what we think about this element of the program or how it's managed.
Which would lead to what we'd have to agree. In the past, it's been PPS staff has asked us for our advice. It's been really the other way around. I don't know what we've ever given necessarily. And so then it becomes topics agreed upon by the committee and PPS staff. We just may want to give them advice that they don't care about. So whether or not we can agree on the topic is somewhat irrelevant. We're gonna opine on that. That really is, I think, Travis, you're right on. This goes back to that piece about the industry standards that we would be giving them advice on. I'm sure Sarah's looking forward to it, so can't wait to hear our first piece of advice that we have for her.
You guys know that it's the open door, open phone, open all the things. I mean, when you guys ask for stuff, we provide it. When it's a two-way street. So absolutely.
I do need to get going in the next few minutes.
I personally would take some of this out and just go, the committee may request additional documents and provide advice to PPS staff on whatever it is that other topic, put that in with that other topic. I don't know.
I'm sure I'm not tracking,
Yeah.
Chair, the other topic about industry standards.
Yes. And this has been in our charter since day one, so long before I was on the committee. And I think back when we were setting up the program,
So that's the bullet point about the committee will regularly review and provide updates to the board on enumerated list of things, industry standards sits there. So that's, again, I think this is about permission to engage with staff, which you do anyway and should continue to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't.
I don't know we need it. Yeah, I don't think we need it. Does anybody else think we need it? All right.
As long as nobody ever tells us.
You can't tell us that.
I don't want to hear your.
Yeah, you can't tell us that. We don't.
There'll be a de facto agreement anyway at that point in time, unless, right? Okay, we can delete.
Right, and you know what? We can revisit this charter. I won't say it's not cast in stone, but we can always, if it's a problem. All right, taking it out. Add a mission statement. That's a big deal. Do we need one? We have the purpose in the beginning of our document. It tells us what we're supposed to be doing. It takes a lot of work to do a mission statement.
I
they're
think
always big and nobody remembers them. And
the mission, I think a mission is a statement of purpose, and that is largely what's contained in the opening paragraph. But Janice may have other thoughts about what's missing there, if anything. But I think a mission. The board has overall, I mean, the district has a mission and the board has a mission and the committee has a purpose, which is in effect a mission statement, but contained to its defined purpose. But go ahead, Janice.
Sorry, actually just the updated version where really the mission is kind of bumped up to that background paragraph. It actually is much clearer what the mission is. So we can just move past that.
Excellent.
Great. Check it off the list. Thank you. I got 4 more. Revising topics and scope for the annual performance audit work plan. Revisiting, no revising.
It's to revisit. So this recommend, if you look at page 2, under the very bottom of page 2, there's a topic there's a bullet point that says topics and scope for the annual performance audit work plan. So typically what happens is the bond auditors will reach out to a variety of different stakeholders to gather input on what they're going to cover in the next audit. And then after they meet with all the different stakeholders, and I'm pretty sure BAC members are some of the stakeholders that they meet with, but after they meet with everybody, they put together a scope proposal and send that to PPS staff. And currently, whoever's the contract manager for the contract ultimately has the decision-making of authority of what is and is not approved for the scope for that year. So for example, the bond auditors may send a memo with like 5 different scope elements that they're proposing for the next year's audit. I'm not saying this has ever happened, but I'm just telling you why I care. It is possible that whoever the contract manager for the bond auditor's contract could say no to number 2 and no to number 4 and just move forward without ever bringing forward the memo that actually had 5 elements listed in their bond scoping memo. So I would really like to see that the BAC has the authority to approve the bond scoping memo each year. So instead of that proposed bond scoping memo going to staff, it would go to the BAC for consideration of, yes, we want and we like these 5 things, or no, maybe one of the 5 things is not really overly relevant for this year. Just throwing that out there for discussion.
I think that becomes a recommendation to the board, not a decision of the BAC though, right, Janice?
Okay, yes, that's what
Yeah,
I
we
meant.
don't really get to make it. I don't think it's a bad
So
idea.
that-
All the things in their scope of work pertain to the bond program. So it's probably not a bad idea that we get to see it before it's adopted by the board. I guess I'd go that far with it.
Well, so the board does
I
not.
always get interviewed. What's that?
The board does not make that decision about the scope inclusion.
Right.
But unless
Oh, I see.
BAC could make I don't know how to work it out perfectly, but what I'm seeing is of the scope and decision making around what is included or not included in the annual bond audits. Right now, that final decision making authority lies with the contract manager, and I don't think that meets best practices. It's just allowing the person being audited say what will or will not necessarily be included in the scope of the annual audit. And I would like that authority to be placed elsewhere, whether it's with you guys or some other mechanism. It's just really important.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll just.
Chris, you're the CPA.
I see the conflict there. But I also feel like maybe we actually don't have the authority to sign contracts as a body, so I understand that as well. I wonder if there's maybe a path where the contract manager needs to come present to us, like where they're ending up with scope, and like if they're proposing to eliminate recommended scopes, some of which may be the result of our interviews, why that would be. So
Yeah.
I totally resonate, and I can see that there's a needed control or segregation of duty there to address the issue that you're highlighting.
Jonathan?
Chris just said what I was thinking better than I would have said it.
Okay.
+1 to Chris.
So I think if the auditor and the scope of the audit, whoever's presenting, comes to the BAC, then the BAC has authority to raise concerns or echo endorsement or whatever to the board on the scope of the audit. And I think that does make a lot of sense.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody? Great. All right, next item was consider augmenting charge related to bond funded seismic work. Did we already address that previously?
I think yes, because I asked if you guys were interested in giving and you said no, and so that's fine. We can move on from that one.
Okay. Let's see.
So the next one
Revisit the
is
use of the man. Yeah.
to revisit the use of the term may, and we talked about it because it's in here a couple of places. So you know, if you guys are happy and comfortable with the term may without clearly defining when it will happen or at whose request, then it's totally fine if y'all have that level of comfort. When I read it and it says may, it just makes me want to make sure that there is a clear mechanism. So if you ask a question, you feel comfortable knowing that you will get the information you're requesting.
It's pretty much worked so far. So, did anybody have any other comment on that? Okay. Add specific, we already talked about the KPI for the Presidio one.
Yeah, so when I was making the suggestion, kind of what I had envisioned was the comprehensive management plan that Sarah mentioned would be provided to the BAC. And potentially, I wouldn't necessarily feel like the BAC might want to monitor and report on all of them, but if the plan was provided to the BAC and you kind of look through it, potentially y'all could pick out a few KPIs that are of significance that you could monitor and report on in your report to the board on a regular basis.
Okay, did we come up through that with our management best practices, right?
And duties of the committee to monitor the KPIs, and we're gonna work on language to
Language for
define
that.
that. So as I understood, and it's a good point to clarify, the prior discussion half an hour ago was KPIs generally for the bond program management. That could be PPS staff, that could be Presidio. I think how you do that doesn't have to be in the charter per se,
Right.
but I think Janice points out some ways you might think about it.
Okay. And monitor increases in bond funded contracts.
So I probably should explain where that came from. So PPS Purchasing and Contracting did a memo to the board on some other topic. And in that memo, it mentioned that the BAC closely monitors increases in bond funded contracts. And I've just been watching your meetings for a while now, and I've never really noticed that type of discussion taking place in the BAC meetings. So I was just, if it is staff's perception that the BAC already closely monitors increased bond funded contracts, and that may not necessarily be something that is in your charge, it's important to make sure everybody's on the same page about what is and is not in your charge. And just based off the memo, it appears that staff have the appearance that the BAC already closely monitors increases to bond funded contracts. So
Never in the past. I mean, we kind of got off, things kind of were going along smooth, and then, we made some changes. So the last few meetings haven't been what normally we have done for the last 6 years. I don't know about the word closely, but we've always had a conversation when we've seen that the budgets have gone up, and we've asked why they've gone up and what's caused it. We've asked what the effect's been in certain economic circumstances that are occurring. I feel like we've done it, at least in the past anyway. So yeah. Jonathan?
Yeah, that language in the PowerPoint definitely stuck out to me, especially with the closely adverb. I mean, to Greg's point, yeah, like I've been here long enough to be around and participate in asking questions, but there's an implication that like we're doing this so perhaps somebody else doesn't have to. And I mean, like I try to be very clear about like I am a volunteer and there's staff and staff work on this all the time. And my role is to ask higher level questions, consistent with the charter. But I don't think we could closely monitor anything in who we are. So I do think that probably needs to be corrected. Monitor, sure. Closely monitor, not possible.
Right. I mean, we were told, and we actually do, we're kind of at the 30,000 foot level. We're looking at this thing in a manner, we're not doing an audit. We're not getting the books out. And it says it in the report that we've given to the board. We rely on whatever the staff provides us, the thing you talked about at the beginning, Chris. We rely on what they give us. Your hands up, did you?
Well, yeah, and to that point, I guess, do we get the reporting to say that we monitor increases in bonds funded contracts? I mean, I don't remember either way, but I don't feel like we did at our last meeting. I would expect, a report of contract activity that shows, increases and that sort of thing to get us questions from. Do we get that?
We have in the past, and we've been working with Sarah, and the reports are coming together now so that we're getting the information that shows the original project budget, whatever the change was to the project budget. What, did they get money in from a different source, which has happened in the past? And what our expectation is at the end of the project. Will we have money left over? Are we kind of coming on, so forth. So yeah, we are. We are doing there are some changes because we have new management folks working with us. Jonathan?
Greg, to your point, we look at I know this has evolved, and I can think about like the red, yellow, green in the old regime, and we would look at overall project budgets. But we were not looking, it is true that like, sure, the contract with the general contractor is the big driver of whatever's going on at XYZ site. But I mean, this language here about bond funded contracts, there's a lot of contracts with, with folks other than Hoffman, Colas, or whoever, and so
I have big concerns about that general
Yeah,
language
exactly.
encompassing way more
Yeah,
than
so, like,
you have capacity to do.
yeah, there's a lot of other consultants in any one of these,
We don't
any one of
look
these
at
efforts. Yeah.
We don't look at the engineering or architecture contracts. We just look at the projects themselves overall. That's what, we don't look at and you're right, we don't have the time or ability to do that.
But I think in the near term, staff needs to be directed not to make that assertion anymore, right?
Good point.
Kind of my last question would be, is there any interest to monitor increases to bond funded contracts over a certain percentage point? Like perhaps if it's over 125% of the original contract, is that something y'all would be interested in getting, like a list of bond funded contracts that are over 125% of the original contract, where you would at least have the opportunity to ask staff for the rationale for the increase to those bond funded contracts? If you wanted to, not saying necessarily that you would have to, but at least you would have a list of bond funded contracts that met that exceeded the original contract by a certain percentage. So if any of them caught your eye, you could ask, but if none of them catch your eye, then you wouldn't necessarily have to.
I would just note in the line, the kind of the order of operations, if there's an increase in a bond funded contract that's more than $150,000, it will already have been approved by the board. So it comes back to that budget inquiry. You wouldn't be advising the board on the approval of the 125. You would be looking at it after the fact and in the context of an overall budget. So anyway, I see hands up. I'll be quiet.
I'm sorry. I have to jump off.
You have to go. Okay. Yeah.
So thanks everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good night.
I was gonna say, it feels a bit like the tail wagging the dog to me here. Like somebody said we do this, and now we're talking about whether we should do it. It just feels like I feel like we're trying, from my perspective, we're trying to mature our management of the program and the projects under the program. Let's focus on that, and maybe we can evolve into contracts at some point at our choosing, as opposed to being driven by the reference that was made.
Okay. I agree at this point. Jonathan, you had your hand up. Did you, Chris, say what you wanted to say?
It's 2 for 2 and it's 5:51. Yeah.
Speaking of March Madness.
Now, this is on the list. Did anybody have anything else that we didn't talk about on the list? Anything we had? Okay, so the next step would be, Liz, you took some notes to go ahead and revise it to what we talked about. And we have a space on our agenda here in a couple of weeks at our regular meeting to bring us back, and maybe we can approve it at that meeting. Yeah.
I think that would be great. Then you can see the revised
Yeah.
language, and super. We will do that.
Is that okay with everybody? Hey, you got through great. We're 52 minutes over, but you got through the whole thing. So
yeah, but it's one less meeting.
Discussions.
That's true.
One less meeting. That's right.
I'd rather have a long meeting than 2 short ones. Yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you all at the end of the month then.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I really
Everyone.
appreciate it.
Thank you.